So in this video here, we're going to take a closer look at the TaylorMade GAPR Lo club and the adjustability in this neck sleeve of how we can change loft a little bit here. So a different one here for a long iron, a driving iron, where we can actually now change loft a little bit. So GAPR Lo 2 comes in at 17 degrees of loft. I'm going to crank this down in its lowest loft setting, which is down by 1.5 degrees, which obviously moves it to 15.5 degrees, so nearer to that one iron. We're going to hit some shots. Let's see how that ball flight actually comes out in comparison to a 17 degree. Okay, so these driving irons from a lot of the brands here now get much more popular. I've got one in my bag. I've got the P790 UDI, which I really sort of enjoy. And obviously GAPR Lo's come out with GAPR Mid and GAPR High, depending on that flights here. We're going to look at a GAPR Lo today in this video. And this is a little bit more suited to me. So this is maybe a little bit more of that driving iron sort of shot here. So maybe a replacement off the tee. For hitting more fairways, getting that lower flight, especially in those maybe windy golf courses there. But now we've got options of adjusting loft through the neck sleeve. So obviously we've seen that for a long time in the woods, but irons maybe not so much. So we've now got that option of tweaking that loft, which I think is a great advantage for that golfer, just trying to fine tune that ball flight. Or if you want to change that ball flight per the conditions of the day, obviously you've got to do this before you tee off. You can't be doing this halfway around. As per the rules, so it gives you options to change that ball flight. So maybe just a video here, we're going to hit a couple here because I'm quite interested to see myself, because I do enjoy these long irons. I'm maybe interested to see how hitting a 17 degree 2 iron, a standard loft for this particular club in GAPR Lo, flights it, and then I'm going to crank this down to 1.5 degrees lower, which is 15.5, so obviously that lowest setting here, and see how that ball flight actually changes. So we're going to start with a 17 degree, which is a standard loft on the 2 iron. We'll hit just a few shots doing that, and then we'll switch it around. Yeah, it feels lovely. Nice strike opening shots, quite neutral. So as I say, GAPR Lo is the lower flighting of the 3 GAPRs that TaylorMade have brought out. So a little bit more of that iron look, but still quite a bit of chunk behind it there. I've done a bit of a deeper review of this, which I can put a link up and you can go and check that out in a little bit more detail. Okay, that was not a best of strikes there. Caught that a little bit high in the face actually. But that's done all right. Still flighted quite nicely, to be honest. Launching, yeah, around that 11 degree mark, similar to that first shot I hit. Yeah, and that's a nice strike. Yeah, so that flight's quite happy with that flight. You know, it is, I wouldn't say it's low, but it is quite a penetrating sort of ball flight there. So definitely very appealing for that option off the tee, really, in terms of, you know, trying to find that fairway, in terms of trying to get that flight a little bit more penetrated. But I'm really interested to know, cranking this down a couple of degrees, what this flight could possibly turn into. It gives me an option, doesn't it? I've got an option maybe of dropping this down, but how much? Let's have a look. I'm going to switch this down into 1.5 lower in the loft. Same shaft, just going to literally rotate around and put in that lower setting. Okay, so I say same shaft here, I've just rotated it around, so I've now got it on the lower setting here. So this is dropping the loft by 1.5 degrees and making this 15.5 degrees. So very much like a 1 iron sort of loft here. So really interested to see how this sort of flight adjusts because of that. So visually down by the golf ball there, that doesn't look any different to me. I can't see that 1.5 degrees unless I got them side by side. I can't really sort of see that. So visually it doesn't look any different to me, but let's have a look actually if it does make any difference to that launch and sort of spin of it. Oh yeah, okay. Struck that well, definitely a flatter flight there. Definitely came out a little bit lower and just held it sort of more controllable peak flight there. Yeah, 143, carried 2.7 on the spin number there. Okay, we'll look into those numbers a little bit more detail in a minute. We'll hit a few more shots. Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah, much prefer that ball flight to my eye there than the 17. Just seeing it just drop down a touch on that launch, a little bit on that peak height. See 25-yard peak, and I think the other was 28. Again, we'll look a little bit more detail in a minute. So just that slightly flatter flight there. I'm guessing this will probably produce a little bit more ball speed. I struck those two really well there, to be honest, so that'll obviously, my performance and strike will play a part of ball speed. But I would say that slightly stronger on the Loft will just obviously generate that little bit more ball speed there, maybe just a little bit lower sort of spin number. You've got to remember, at the end of the day, guys, it's only like 1.5 degrees difference, so it is quite subtle. It's not like I'm jumping from a 2-iron to a 1-iron or a sort of 7-iron to a 6-iron here. It is only 1.5 degrees difference, so it's getting nearer to that 1-iron area. I think old Lofts, new Lofts, obviously there's a bit of a change there, isn't there? So I think the new Lofts in a 2-iron's a bit more like the old Loft, maybe sort of 1-iron in a way. Let's get this last one hit. Oh, just lost my balance a little bit on that one, but struck it great. Flights, that's the straightest one I hit after I lost my balance. Yeah, 272, so 247 carried, 272 run out. That's strong, isn't it? That's a great option there, nice and straight, that last one. Okay, so let's look at some numbers a little bit more detail and see if that 1.5 degree difference of Loft, how much does that change to this ball flight? I can visually see some differences, but let's look at some numbers. Okay, so let's look at some numbers a little bit more detail. Now, just bear in mind, I didn't have my HMT stickers on here, so this isn't measuring club head speed 100% accurate here, because it's guesstimating club head speed as per ball speed. So you see there's a difference of ball speed there, so then it recalculates what it thinks it must have swung at there. So please do ignore that, because I haven't got my dots on the club. But ball speed obviously is accurate, because that's what the GC2 measures, not the HMT section. So definite increase of ball speed. And obviously, like I say, struck those a little bit better there, so we're seeing that little bit more increase there maybe than the 17 degree, but obviously that Loft difference as well should make a bit of a difference between that. We see launch angle difference here, as you would expect, so 12 degrees down to 9.6, so as we lose a Loft, definitely that lower launch, which I physically sort of saw. Interestingly, that's the spin's actually gone up only fractionally, so it's pretty much the same, to be honest. It's just gone up a touch. We know strike can move that around a lot more, but peak height is different. So with that launch different, you can see peaking out at 28, we're down at 25, so 3 yards lower on its peak of its flight, with the 1.5 degree less than the standard 17. Obviously descent angle gets a little bit shallower there, because of the peak angle is, so peak height's less, so descent angle gets a little bit shallower, so run out's a little bit more, so getting a little bit more carry because of the ball speed. 243 against 235, and then the run out's quite a bit more also. Especially that last one there, that's really good. 247 and 272, that's nice, and only on 1 yard offline. We like that. Okay, so there's a nice little test there with that new GAPR Lo. Obviously a new range that's just come out as we're shooting this. I think this is going to be officially launching around Ryder Cup week here. We're doing some pre-orders here at the Academy. We've done some fittings which have been really sort of interesting, you know, between the low, the mid and the high. Then obviously you've got that adjustability. So that adjustability for me is a great feature. I think it gives you some different options like what I've sort of shown there in terms of that ball flight. Yes, the GAPR Lo is all about that low penetrating flight, but then I can then fine tune that flight within the same head, okay, with that adjustability on that neck sleeve. And I can also go up here, by the way. I haven't obviously tested that, but I can also go up 1.5 to 18.5. So again, that you might like that lower head, but just want that slightly higher flight. Again, you've got options to do that. So beauty with the adjustability, it gives you some different options as per the flight you want, or maybe the flight for that particular conditions of that day you're actually playing. For me, I like that lower flight, so 1.5 down, 15.5 degrees of Loft. I feel like I can just get that going out really flat. Hit me into a headwind, yeah, I like that sort of ball flight there. And obviously that gave me a little bit more in terms of that yards there as it comes in a little bit sort of more shallower. So interesting one here. So GAPR, if you've not had a chance, you know, give us a shout. We can always get you down here if you're local. If not, get to your nearest TaylorMade fitter. Get dialed in with the right head, the right neck sleeve to your desired flight, and obviously get that gap filled. See what I did there? Gap. Yeah. Okay. Right. That's enough for me. I'm going to go. All right. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Thanks very much for the support of the channel. You know, I get some great comments down below. So any interest, you know, or comments between this video or any other videos, find them down below. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Give me a thumbs up, share the video around, and hopefully I'll catch up with you all very soon.